There is no doubt that our nation today, as a nation, is adrift. We are like a ship without a rudder, a compass, or even a goal.
D. James Kennedy Ministries presents Truths That Transform.
This week on Truths That Transform, we're taking a closer look at the rising specter of socialism.
Right now, 75% of students in college support socialism, think it's the best form of government.
What are the consequences of electing a number of proponents of socialism to Congress?
I do believe that socialism is on the rise right now, and I think it's a direct correlation to the loss of a biblical worldview.
Where is our nation headed? Join us for today's Truths That Transform. Well, Happy New Year, and welcome to Truths That Transform, a production of D. James Kennedy Ministries, where we are standing for truth and defending your freedom. The Bible applies to every area of life, and we exist as a ministry to help you see how that is true, so that you can articulate, defend, and act upon what you believe. Socialism is growing in popularity, especially with young Americans. But as you'll discover today, it is completely contrary to biblical teaching. Later, we will hear from someone who is on the front lines of the battle against economic, environmental, and governmental socialism. And we will give you a crucial opportunity to make your voice heard. As we begin, our own Dr. Jerry Newcomb takes a look at where America may be headed.
The DSA is the Democratic Socialists of America. It's an organization that wants to completely restructure American society. They gained momentum following Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign in 2016, when he ran on a platform that focused on wealth inequality.
When young people and working people and say loudly and clearly, enough is enough.
Socialism is growing in popularity, especially among millennials.
I do believe that socialism is on the rise right now, and I think it's a direct correlation to the loss of a biblical worldview. The vacuum. When you create a vacuum, it'll always be filled, and if you take God out, it'll be filled by man. And God always gives us more liberty and freedom than man does.
The reality is we're going to increasingly move toward socialism in America. I mean, right now, we found in our study last month that 37% of Americans say they prefer socialism to capitalism. When you look at the millennial generation, it's a significant majority of them who prefer that. So, I mean, we're moving in that direction.
And why not? Since that is what they've been taught largely in our public schools for the last couple of decades.
What's happening is college students are coming forth from public high schools and public colleges fully baked as socialists because they have professors who have brainwashed them, basically, and they haven't been re-educated by life yet.
And the results of this constant drumbeat for socialism can be seen all over America.
Socialism is, in my definition, I would say people having what they need. People being able to live with dignity, knowing that they have what they need.
I think socialism means doing what's best in society for everyone.
Socialism is caring for your people.
Millennials have grown up thinking socialism is acceptable. We're going to become a Marxist communist nation. That is going to happen in America if we don't reverse what's happening right now.
One of the rising stars of the Socialist Democrats is 29-year-old former bartender Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She wants to expand Medicare for all. Sounds nice, but who's going to pay for it?
Medicare for all. Is it too expensive?
No. People often say, like, how are you going to pay for it? And I find the question so puzzling because how do you pay for something that's more affordable? How do you pay for cheaper rent? How do you pay for, you just pay for it.
Critics note that the entire GDP of the country is currently about $19 trillion a year, yet the Congresswoman's plan would suddenly add as much as $40 trillion of new spending over 10 years to our already overburdened system.
You can't spend more money than you have, and you can't borrow money you can't afford to pay back. Those are the basic fundamentals of the economy, whether you're a family, an individual, or a country. And clearly, this country has spent money it didn't have, and it borrowed money that it can't possibly pay back in the lifetimes of the next 3 generations. It's really, I would call it a sin against our grandchildren, is what this really amounts to.
The irony of all this is that socialism has a consistently terrible track record.
In 5,500 years of recorded history, you cannot point to any socialistic nation that has increased freedom and increased prosperity for the people. And yet right now, 75% of students in college support socialism, think it's the best form of government. Now, there's nothing historically you can point to, there's nothing statistically you can point to, but that's what they've been taught.
It is the failure of the church that's even opened up this door for this collectivistic approach to the well-being of society.
Socialism is a milder and gentler form of communism. Both systems claim that we have a right to what you own. In fact, you really don't own it. We own it. We as the state. That's a form of theft, and it's wrong.
The challenge to Christian conservatives is to explain how free markets are more biblical and compassionate to all than is government takeover of everything. This is a message we clearly need to articulate to the next generation.
They simply say, what's happening now isn't working. The good news about where we are now is that people want answers. The good news is they're willing to make choices that are outside the norm. So I believe that this energy towards socialism can be harnessed and changed, but it can't be done so unless there's a clear articulation of the benefits and then the features of what our worldview has to offer.
D. James Kennedy Ministries is standing for truth and defending your freedom, but we cannot do that without your generosity. With our new monthly automatic giving program, you can conveniently ensure that we are able to broadcast the gospel, train Christian leaders in Washington, D.C., defend religious freedom in court, and much more. Whether you can give $35, $50, or $100 a month or more through your credit card or bank account, your monthly donation will make an enormous impact for Christ, and it will entitle you to automatically receive our valuable monthly ministry resource. Contact us right away to join our convenient automatic monthly giving program and receive the powerful book, Make Your Life Count, as your first monthly resource. By God's grace and with your help, we will impact our nation and the world for Jesus Christ.
It's disturbing that there are significant numbers of young people in America who embrace socialism. And it's even more disturbing that some of the purveyors of this bankrupt ideology are now being elected to national office. I'm joined now by my very good friend Jennifer Kennedy Cassidy, daughter of Dr. D. James Kennedy. Jennifer, your dad had no illusions whatsoever about the impact of socialism, did he?
No, he didn't. He knew that socialism was unbiblical and that it was dangerous to everyone. Yeah. Sadly, there are many people who mistakenly think that socialism is a way of demonstrating compassion for the disadvantaged. And they even wrongly think Christianity calls for government to redistribute wealth and do the work of charity. But they couldn't be more wrong. Socialism never works because it's based on a false understanding of human nature, and it seeks to replace God and freedom with government and bondage. My father understood this better than anyone, and he never tired of sounding the alarm on the damage that socialism would inflict. He shares more in this portion of his message, The Bankruptcy of Socialism.
There is no doubt that our nation today, as a nation, is adrift. We are like a ship without a rudder, a compass, or even a goal. We don't know which way to head, or even which way is which way, because we have turned away from the Word of God and from the Scriptures and from the instructions that the founders of this nation and our fathers believed in and looked to, and upon which they built this great country. As John Quincy Adams says, that the genius of the American Revolution is that we united in one indissoluble bond the principles of civil government and the principles of Christianity. But that bond is being increasingly severed in our time, and so we are adrift. We are lost. We don't know why we're having the problems that we're having. Though we have seen the greatest experiment in socialism in the history of the world in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics come to a disastrous end, crash in flames and burn, and bring utter disaster and bankruptcy to that nation, and perhaps famine, still, socialism is alive, though not well, in America. Well, we use other names for it. We call it the welfare state, a benevolent government, but it's the same thing regardless of what you call it. And it's always that good intentions on the part of some politicians or bureaucrats that leads us into this disaster. But the thing that we need to understand is that the federal government is extraordinarily wasteful and extraordinarily inefficient, and also that it creates far more problems than it helps. Professor Thomas Sowell of Stanford University, one of America's leading black economists, said this: that the amount of money necessary to lift every man, woman, and child in America above the poverty line is 1/3 of what we are currently spending. But because of the incredible wastefulness of the federal government, what we do, he says, is simply find that the money ends up in the pockets of highly paid administrators, consultants, and staff. That's why the 2 bedroom counties to Washington, D.C., one in Virginia, one in Maryland, have the highest per capita income in America today. But you know, we can't blame it on the politicians, at least certainly not all of it. We often hear that the politicians are just buying our votes by taxing and giving us more things that they take the money from ourselves. That's true. But why are they doing that? Because when they try to be responsible and when they try to restrain government spending, we vote them right out of office. The problem is with our own hearts, our own greed, our own desire for something for nothing, for more and more and more from the government trough. That's the problem, and that's why the politicians act that way. I'll tell you this. If your eyes were open and you saw the colossal wastefulness, you saw the mounting federal debt, which is going to be disastrous, you saw the inefficiency and ineffectiveness of these government programs, and you know that they don't work and they create more problems than they solve, when a politician tells you that he's going to tax more and spend more, he wouldn't get your vote. But when he told you that he was going to cut taxes and cut spending, he would have your vote and he would stay in. But someone studied the witnesses that come to Congress and all of those committees and make all of their proposals, and for every one that comes and says we need to cut taxes and cut spending, 134 of us come and tell them, spend more, spend more. We want more from the federal government. The federal government doesn't have anything to begin with. It all comes out of our pockets. May God, through the truth of His Word, open our eyes and change our hearts, that we might trust in the living God and follow His principles. And my friends, unless we trust in Christ as our Savior, unless we know that His Father has promised to provide all of our needs out of His riches and glory, we're going to continue to look to a provident state, and we're going to move more and more into despotism and socialistic tyranny and economic ruin in this country. We need to stand up and say, we have had enough of this. Look what atheism has produced in other parts of the world. We don't want it here. We want the religious freedom that our founders gave to us. We don't want this socialistic mess of pottage that you're trying to force on us. We want the free enterprise system that the founders of this country gave to us, which made America the strongest and the most bountiful and plentiful nation that the world had ever seen.
As Dr. Kennedy just shared, socialism is on the rise, and the problem is that too many Americans are happy to hold out their hands to receive other people's earnings. This is the rotten fruit of Karl Marx combined with the sin nature of mankind. In just a few minutes, we will tell you about an opportunity to make your voice heard on this and other vital matters. But Marx's terrible ideology has filtered into other areas of life as well. The influence of Marxism on our culture explains many of the divisions we see in America today. Dr. E. Calvin Beisner is the founder and national spokesman of the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. He is widely regarded as the foremost evangelical voice in America on climate change alarmism, but he has also written extensively about economics and biblical stewardship. I recently had a chance to sit down here in our studio and talk with Cal about what cultural Marxists are and what the left is doing and imposing on our nation. Many people see Marxism as an economic system that's failed everywhere it's been tried, notwithstanding. Right. Today, we're seeing more of a cultural influence of Marxism, aren't we? Describe how that is and what that means. What are the implications?
Well, you know, Karl Marx, his thesis was that humanity is always in conflict over divisions basically of property, divisions of wealth, right? But this class conflict he saw as always coming from inequalities of wealth. Now, as socialists attempted to address that through socialism, they found that it didn't work, but they still had this basic idea that there are these conflicts, these class conflicts. So they started identifying the class conflicts along different lines, along gender lines, along skin color lines, along ethnicity lines, along nowadays sexual preference lines, things like that. All of those become new arenas of class conflict. This is cultural Marxism gone rampant, and unfortunately it's really making a lot of headway in the churches, especially among the young.
Now, you've studied these things, the writings of Marx and Engels and many others. They identified in their writings two cultural institutions that they felt had to be done away with or their power diminished in order for Marxism to succeed. Explain what that is and the implications for that.
Two and lots more, but primarily the family and the church.
Exactly.
Anything that stood between the government, the civil government, the state, right, and the individual. Anything that Roman Catholic political thought has tended to call the mediating institutions. The great Calvinist thinker Abraham Kuyper called them spheres with their own sovereignties, right? Yeah. Anything that would buffer the government-individual relationship and protect that individual from some of the immense power of the civil government, the Marxists want to get rid of.
If the cultural Marxists get their way and can delegitimize the church, emasculate the family, so to speak, removing the influence of those institutions from the culture so that government rises. Is there no hope left for us, or does the power of the gospel still reign supreme? Help me out here.
You know, if the social justice advocates, the cultural Marxists get their way, Venezuela is where we're headed, right? But the fact is, down through history, society after society, nation after nation, has gone through cycles of this sort, and many have recovered. Not always very quickly, and there's always a lot of suffering involved. But the fact is that Jesus Christ said that the very gates of hell would not prevail against his church. As the church continues to grow, and as a former professor of church history, I appreciate the fact that the church went from being, 11 disciples after Judas hung himself, right? 11 disciples to now over 1/3 of all the people in the world profess to be Christians, claim Jesus Christ as their Lord. And the church is still growing worldwide, faster today than at any time in its history. So may we see a great declension here, as we've already seen in Europe? Yes, we certainly might. But Jesus has given us the end game. The end game is he wins. He is the one who is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. This is what we have to look forward to, and he's the one we serve, and we serve him out of love and gratitude for what he's done for us on the cross.
Occupy until I come means
Amen.
Be busy
That's
about
right.
the work that's before us, and
That's
in the power of God, trusting that his coming will illuminate
Amen
all
to that.
things
Amen to that.
all people.
Yep.
Cal, thanks so much for being with us. Great to
Thank
have
you,
you
Frank.
here.
God bless you. Thank you.
As we begin a new year, the creeping tide of socialism in America is something we all need to be concerned about. But it is by no means the only challenge we face. We want to hear from you to find out what you believe are the most pressing issues facing our nation today. Please contact us today to receive your Spiritual State of the Nation survey. Fill it out and return it to us right away, and we will give the results to President Trump, Vice President Pence, and your member of Congress, plus their Chief of Staff. This is the time to let our leaders hear from us, so they will know which issues we are most concerned about. To receive your Spiritual State of the Nation survey, simply write to us at D. James Kennedy Ministries, Box 11154, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33339, or call us toll-free at 877-962-7677. Or you can go online to djkm.org. And if you are able to include a generous donation when you contact us, we will also send you the brand new book that we've just published, A New Birth of Freedom, by our own Dr. Jerry Newcomb, and with a foreword by his friend William J. Federer. This short book takes you behind the current headlines to show you the spiritual decline that's happening in America, and how recapturing our Christian roots and a revival of the Spirit of God is the answer to our problems. This book will equip you to better understand and articulate what has gone wrong in our nation and how we can regain our freedom and prosperity. We will send you A New Birth of Freedom by Dr. Jerry Newcomb as our thanks for your generous donation. And no matter what, please make sure to contact us to get your copy of the Spiritual State of the Nation survey, so that we can make your voice heard to our nation's leaders on what issues are most important to you as a Christian. Simply write to us at D. James Kennedy Ministries, Box 11154, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33339, or call toll-free 877-962-7677, or you can go online to djkm.org. Socialism is a recurring nightmare for humanity. Along with its more violent manifestation, communism, it has brought untold misery to uncounted millions. Have you ever heard of or seen this volume? It's a classic, and it's called The Black Book of Communism. This is a Harvard University Press book which was published in 1999. It documents what the communists actually did to their own people in nation after nation after nation. Perhaps the subtitle says it best: Crimes, Terror, Repression. After the fall of the Soviet Union, uncovered documents revealed that everything Americans feared about communism was true, and even worse than we imagined. As the great historian Paul Johnston has written, the totalitarian states of the 20th century, the vast majority of which were communists, proved to be the greatest killers of all time. Yet there are those around who want to resurrect socialism and communism, thinking it will work if we just try one more time. But more than 100 million dead is plenty of reason to put an end to that foul experiment. Communism is the most rabid form of socialism. But many of the same people pushing for socialism in America have also been supporters of the harder and more violent form, communism. Bernie Sanders, who nearly captured a major party presidential nomination as an avowed socialist, took his honeymoon where? In the Soviet Union during the heyday of communism. Hollywood's Sean Penn, Michael Moore, Oliver Stone, all have praised communist dictators like Venezuela's Hugo Chavez. As a friend of mine likes to say, ideas have consequences and bad ideas have victims. Socialism and communism have left more victims in their wake than any other movement in human history. Indeed, this wretched and inhuman offspring of Marx and Lenin properly belongs, in the words of Ronald Reagan, on the ash heap of history. D. James Kennedy Ministries is standing for truth and defending your freedom. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Truths That Transform. We'll see you next time.
Next week on Truths That Transform.
This training has been one of the best decisions I made in deciding to run for public office.
What difference does Christianity make? The eloquence of his Christian life was credited with changing England.
That's next week. Today's program is available on DVD for your gift to this ministry of any amount. Please call, write, or log on to our website today. This has been a production of D. James Kennedy Ministries.